I totally understood when I walked in the room in a management or executive position. They'd never worked for a female before. They'd never seen an African-American woman in this type of capacity. So it's my job to make everybody feel comfortable. Hey, I'm oil and gas just like you. I've had the same trainings. We both have the same ability to bring value to this company. So let me make sure everyone understands that we have more similarities than differences, and for them to be comfortable with me. And that's not quite fair, because my peers didn't have to walk into a room and make people feel comfortable with them.
Hello, Money Movers. Welcome back to another episode of the Her Money Moves podcast. And I am thrilled because today I have a powerhouse corporate and community leader with us. Her name is Paula Harris. She is a native Houstonian, and she is the Vice President of Community Relations for the Houston Astros. And she's also the Executive Director of the Astros Foundation. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stacey. I'm so excited to be here. It took a minute to get here, and I've been trying to run and get on your show, and I'm happy that we're going to spend some time together.
Thank you. So I know we both come from similar backgrounds in oil and gas. You were with Schlumberger for, I can't believe, 33 years.
33 years. Right out of university, I started working as a field engineer, working offshore on rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, land rigs in South Louisiana. Spent some time, 7 years, offshore and on land, riding on trucks and boats.
And helicopters?
And then I started my career progression, first into sales as a sales engineer, which I told them I do not want to do sales. I thought of people going door to door selling vacuum cleaners, It was one of my most enjoyable. You're always doing sales anyway, right? And so getting to know clients and spending the time with Exxon and Chevron and Hess and, all of our clients was a big development move for me to let me know that I enjoyed engaging with people and showing a company's value and that kind of stuff. So that was my first corporate position. And coming from Sunnyside, and I don't even know if I met anyone in oil and gas, an engineer, or in a corporate position. So it was a lot of learn as you go, lessons learned, best practices, or better not do that again type of a situation, because I grew up with two very blue-collar, hardworking parents that sent us to A&M, and being in the corporate sector was something new and different.
So I know for me, I'm very grateful that I had the experiences that I did working in energy, but I have to admit, every day people ask me, how did you last? Working in that male-dominated oil and gas industry, it's not always a lot of opportunities for us. So can you
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many, from the very beginning, my first job was in Houma, Louisiana. I was, in a new part of the country, and Louisiana is different. I was in an all-male dominated. There were 3 other women in the field in the whole states of probably Louisiana and Texas at the time. This is the 80s, mid 80s. And no matter where we are as women in our career, there's always that feeling that you don't know as much as the guys, right? There's always that, do I belong here? Can I keep up? Just that insecurity. So you hit a rig, you've got $1 million worth of equipment. There's so much going on, and no one thinks you should be out there, right? And so I was very insecure at the beginning of my career. Well, about 5 or 6 years. SLB, Schlumberger, is a pretty arrogant company, and we feel pretty good about ourselves and how much we know and how much training. So it got to where a company man would say, I don't have room for a woman out here. And I said, well, you can't get an engineer because I'm a woman and I'm here, or I'm coming. I'm all you got. And I remember when I first started working offshore, I would be like, no worries, don't mind me. It's a big deal when a woman would hit a rig back then. Woman on board, airport, you'd hear it over the intercoms as soon as your helicopters land. And I would say, I'll sleep in the bunks with my guys. No special privileges, no. And then I realized not only am I a woman, I'm a really good engineer. And so, and it takes, if you want the diversity and if you want to have me out here, you're going to have to move some people around. So I'm standing there with the company man. And well, if you move him over there, then I can have this room by myself over here. You never know where these guys come. People that hide out offshore. Most of them are running from the law, FBI, So they haven't seen women in forever. So most of them were really nice and come out to my unit with cookies or baked goods. For sure, I felt like sometimes I would tell SOB, I'm not going back out there. I don't think that I was safe. And they always backed me up. If I felt like I was in a position. Now, this is the 80s and 90s, so it wasn't any paperwork or HR complaint. It was just, no, if Paula doesn't feel safe going, she doesn't have to go. Now, of course, there are processes and procedures and there are laws that say you can't say and do and act inappropriately. Whereas back then, everybody and their mother had a picture of a woman in a bikini holding a big tool and up as a poster. And I would just simply go out to our doghouse or our work area and say, take it down. Take that home to your wife at home. That's not for the workspace. So everybody didn't appreciate you so much doing that, but it was the beginning of change. No one would ever do that now. No one would ever think to take a young engineer and say, hey, I'm taking a bunch of clients out. Would you want to go to lunch? And the place we go to lunch, all the waitresses have on negligees. That just wouldn't happen today. Mm-hmm. And it happened all the time then. So you had to make decisions. You had to draw lines. You had to make sure that you were well respected and that no one felt that they could tell sexist, racist, homophobic jokes around you, whereas that was just kind of the culture of the oil industry. And as the oil industry matured and I matured in my career, you found that there were other ceilings or other low expectations of you or other things that you had to overcome. And I really tell people, Stacey, I think one of the secrets of my success is that I totally understood when I walked in the room in a management or executive position, they'd never worked for a female before. They'd never seen an African-American woman in this type of capacity. So it's my job to make everybody feel comfortable. Hey, I'm oil and gas just like you. I've had the same trainings. I'm not your son, your nephew, or your neighbor, but we both have the same ability to bring value to this company. So let me make sure everyone understands that we have more similarities than differences and for them to be comfortable with me. And that's not quite fair because my peers didn't have to walk into a room and make people feel comfortable with them or to do or say or to get that uneasy feeling out of the way first. But I understood that in the industry I was in, at the time I was in there, that was just one of the duties that I would have to do many times.
So 33 years that you broke the glass ceiling and really made a big difference there at Schlumberger. How did you transition from oil and gas to baseball?
It does seem kind of a strange path there. I loved my time with Schlumberger. I absolutely did. I saw the world coming from Sunnyside and being able to traverse the globe and work with teams from everywhere from China to Russia to Australia. It was amazing career. But after 33 years, it was time to retire. My daughter was finishing up in college and I said, okay, well, let's retire and we'll go home and do what old people do, or, Ancestry.com and work in our backyard. My backyard was gorgeous. Exercise, kind of take care of me. So I did decide to retire and was really enjoying it. I mean, really enjoying it. My husband, he has his own business. And so he's in and out of the house. And I was starting a retirement life. My parents are elderly. I spent a lot of time down on our ranch taking care of them. At the time, I was pretty busy as board chair for the Petroleum Club of Houston. And so that was kind of, volunteer community. And at the same time, pretty historic to have an African-American female as president of the historic Petroleum Club. And I had a meeting, and the Petroleum Club was not open that night. And I said, let's meet at my favorite restaurant, Potente. It's my favorite restaurant in town. It's right across from Minute Maid Park. Had the meeting there at the bar, meeting with someone about something. And I'd work with the Astros because I'd worked sustainability, global stewardship with Schlumberger around the world, making sure that our ESG was being put in place at the time because it was early in the ESG times. And so I worked with the Texans and the Astros. I knew their teams. I knew their sponsorship teams. Schlumberger was big. We were a big sponsor. And so I knew some people over there, but I looked across the room and I said, there's Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros. The person I was meeting with said, yes, that sure is. And I said, it's an away game with the Astros today. I don't know how I knew that, but I knew it. I said, I wonder why he's here. Now I know he rarely goes to away games. And so he approached the table and I said, hey, Jim, Paula Harris with Schlumberger. And he says, yes, Paula, what are you doing now? And I said, well, I retired from Schlumberger. He goes, I want you to come run my foundation. Is that amazing?
Oh, my gosh.
I was talking to about 400 women, and I was a keynote speaker at this event last year. And I said, it was about women in leadership. And I said, isn't that some white boy shit? I can't believe I said that in a keynote speech. But it is. It just doesn't happen to little girls from Sunnyside. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is about my brand and me being protective of my brand my entire career. And because I work with the Astros, he and his team knew how hard I worked, how long I worked, how many 24-hour days that I did. So my reputation, he had heard it, he didn't need a resume and he didn't have to interview. He said, come talk to me tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And we I told my husband, I said, this doesn't sound like a retirement job. And it has not been one. It is 81 home games. It is a big gala, a big wine dinner, a big fashion. We put on many events. We raise lots of money. We give out lots of money. We run Astros Youth Academy. My team stays extremely busy and long days, weekend work. And so I would say that it is very, very close to the same amount that I worked in my 20s and 30s and 40s. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. It's definitely your reputation. And that reputation, I tell young people, your reputation or your brand, how do people think of you? How do people know you? When your name is said in rooms that you aren't in, what is said about you? And so that's something that very early in my career, I started being very intentional to be known as someone that works really hard. That, you may be smarter, you may be able to do the technology more than I, but you're not going to outwork me. You can't get here before I do, and you can't stay as late as I can stay, because I can stay all night.
You've got that endurance. Well, they say the same thing about J-Lo, that, hardest working woman in showbiz,
and the products that she puts out show that, she protects her name, she protects her brand, and she works hard and she knows it, Mm-hmm. And you can look at industry after industry and see women and it's a sacrifice, right? It is a sacrifice. My house has never been the cleanest. My clothes are not folded up and put away. I really think, Stacey, I look at my parents, and my parents are a little frail in their early 80s, and I think they may have retired too soon. And so I think that I started this running at this pace again because it's like, if you want to stay young, if you want to stay mobile, if you want your mind to keep working, mm-hmm. you got to keep moving. Her money moves, right?
Yes.
I think you spend your whole life, your whole career, your whole adult career, balancing what's important and also making sure that you are taking time to do the things that you wanted to do. I always wanted to be on board. Always is a strong word. Later in my career, I decided I wanted to be on corporate boards. And so I set out and started designing things and being very strategic and intentional to get the type of training and background I needed. And I probably should have stopped it too, since I have a full-time job. But I always feel this obligation to my community, this obligation to those behind me, coming behind me, this obligation to say you can do it. When you think about, I always talk about little girls from Sunnyside. What doesn't happen for little girls in Sunnyside? I feel like I'm part of well, yes, it does. Yes, they can be on, a little girl from Sunnyside can be on 3 boards. And I feel like, a personal responsibility to make sure that kids are exposed and experienced and even educated. That was my term on HISD school board, 8 long, treacherous years. But I felt it was important for me to be there because I pushed science and technology, engineering and math. I was the school board member that championed for the all-girls engineering school that's in HISD, Young Women's College Preparatory. That is my legacy as I see hundreds of girls go through, knowing that I traveled all over the U.S. looking at girls' schools and said, yes, we're going to do one in Houston, and it's going to be based on engineering and oil and gas. So that's me. And that's what it is. And they put out a great product. And so there's a lot of personal responsibility to girls that from lower socioeconomic, girls of color, girls who just haven't been exposed. Because I know my elementary in Sunnyside, there were a whole group of girls smarter than I was, and because I had the extra push from parents or the exposure or the experience or the pushed into petroleum engineering where there were very, very few girls of color, it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life, my kids' life. And so
and your community.
And hopefully my community.
And Houston.
Well, and that's why, I wrote the book, When I Grow Up, I Want to Be an Engineer. So the next generation of little girls can know way before I did what engineers do, what's the industry like, in kid form, what options are out there,
That's amazing. Wow. And you've written 2 books, right?
I wrote 2 books. So the first one I wrote was because I was looking for it. So I talked about how I hadn't grown up in a corporate household, right? And everybody in oil and gas, most of these guys, their neighbors were a landman, their uncle was a driller, their dad was a geologist, so they kind of grew up and they went to this industry because they knew this industry. Whereas I went to this industry because my dad saw the front page of the Sunday Chronicle that said petroleum engineers make the most money. And so he said, that's the degree I'm going to pay for at Texas A&M because Texas A&M has the #1 program. And at that point, I was literally like, what's an engineer? I'd never met an engineer and I didn't know oil and gas. And so the ability to introduce kids to oil and gas and to engineering is important. But as I started in my career and corporate America, I realized I hadn't really had exposure to corporate America. So I was looking for this book for somebody of color, lower socioeconomic, whatever, that made it in corporate. Or what are some of the rules? Or how do you do this? And I couldn't find the book. So I decided, okay, well, I need to write the book. And so I just went and I interviewed 10 women who were successful in their careers, lawyers and doctors and engineers and investment bankers, to say, what have you learned? What are your best practices? How have you been successful in corporate America?
Well, I see the parallel here with Her Money Moves.
Yes.
Right? That's what this whole show is about. Anybody can listen. It's free to learn, strategies and tips because they're hearing from these powerhouse women from across all industries.
15, 20 years ago when I did it, now it's podcasts. And so you're doing the exact same thing, just introducing it to young, old, just women who can say, oh, someone has already done that. I can do that, or that's an idea, or to spark some interest in something new, exposure, experiences, and education.
Yes, and
You're
same,
doing it.
with your board service, it's like, how did you learn about that? Because for our audience who are aspiring to be on a board, what advice can you give them?
A lot of these guys that are on boards, they learn because they are CFOs, CEOs, C-suite, or highly networked people that are known. But how do we get into this private club, right?
Mhm.
And so I went through some board readiness training with the Greater Houston Women's Chamber. They had classes or experiences that help women get exposed to boards and network with recruiters. And then I also started networking a lot at the Petroleum Club. And that's how I made it to be president of the Petroleum Club. I remember in one meeting, I said to the group, I'm really trying to get on board. So if anyone has any ideas or any advice, I would be more than welcome to listen. I haven't been put on a board because of that, but I have some great relationships because of that. I know a lot of CEOs because of that experience serving on the Petroleum Club. So being very strategic and intentional about making sure that you know and that you are in places where people who can or have board access is important. The other thing is you have to be ready to work really hard because the boards, you meet once a quarter plus about 10 other side meetings, plus reading hundreds and hundreds of, really understanding how to help a CEO make good decisions about the direction of a company for shareholder value, right? And so I think people talk about the good old days where it used to be, you just get on a board, the CEO does all the work, the board is there to just, check off everything he does, or okay, everything that's being done, and you don't have a lot of input. We're being held accountable. SEC is watching now. Governance must be made very transparent. And at the same time, when we're looking at boards, it is the responsibility of shareholders to make sure that you have a diverse board, that you don't have all guys with the same background, the same vita, and the same experiences, because companies, as they are growing their profitability, as they are looking to grow client base, if they're looking to merge and acquire others, they need to have different views and different thought processes. And so it's a responsibility of all of us to make sure that boards are not only making money for our shareholders, but they are also looking like the clients, looking like tomorrow.
You have achieved remarkable milestones in your career. Reflecting on your journey, what advice would you have given yourself earlier in your career?
Things change. People change, processes change, places change, you change. And so all of that is part of the growth. And so not taking things personal, realizing, hey, this is work. If I'm looking for someone to love, I should probably leave out of this building. So I don't need to love my boss or my coworkers. I need to work with them, and I can go find friends, family, and loved ones outside. And to put that in perspective, I think that would have saved me a little heartache and grief, worried about who likes me when it does not matter if they like me or not. I'm here to work. You're here to work. We don't even have to like each other. Let's just get to the final. Let's just make Schlumberger some money together, So I think growing up on that, I think if I were to do it again, my whole career, because I wanted to be, do board service. I didn't know that because I didn't even know what board service was early in my career.
I didn't either.
I probably would have been a little bit more intentional to stay on the profit revenue generating side of the company. If you can speak well, woman of color, pretty smart, go into recruiting, go into training, go into PR, go into community to be the face of, and I need them. I like to see more women pushed into go into the country manager of Oman, go into the country manager in Argentina, and so stay on the revenue producing side of the company. If you have
Be
a
a money
goal,
mover.
be a money mover.
Yes.
If you want to go to the top. I agree with that. And I would push that.
That is so key. So what legacy do you hope to leave both professionally and personally for those who are coming after you?
I'm a STEM girl. And so the legacy that I've started to leave is making sure that kids from very different communities are pushed into STEM and engineering. I still work on that. I'm a member of the Links Incorporated, and we sponsor National Society of Black Engineers. And so I chair all of that kind of stuff to make sure that kids of color, kids from lower socioeconomic, are exposed to opportunities at STEM degrees. So having the school that I can say I started is a big part, and it makes me very happy. Even over at the Astros, we have the Youth Academy and we have summer programs, and I sneak in a robotics, I sneak in math, so just making sure that kids, you play ball for 2 hours and then you go do some math and then you go do some reading. So I'm really, really big on education. I come from a family of educators and a grandmother who had a third grade education, who knew to educate her kids, to send them off to college, right? And so I'm very big on education. And so if my legacy can just be that she helped educate generations, because educated individuals, that changes trajectory of families, that changes your family for generations.
Yes. So I always love, before we close out our show, to find out, what are you dreaming bigger about next?
When you serve on boards, and even when you don't serve on boards, you notice the geopolitical of what's going on, right? In our politics in Houston, our politics on the nation, and absolutely what's going on around the world, our state, and the unrest. And so I, have been an elected official at one time when I served on the school board and served in corporate and now a big part of the community. I think my dream and my prayer is that people will understand it's okay to be different. It's okay to have differences. But can we just put the children in the forefront of all we do? Is it the environment? Is it, regulatory issues? Is it their education and our investment? And so I want to always have played a small part in making sure that communities understand the importance of keeping the children, our next generation, at the center, and their needs and their expectations of us as the leaders and adults be met, And sometimes you're like, that'll never happen, But if we could just put our differences aside and put the children first, I think we could make laws and we could make decisions and we could make a difference.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your incredible journey with us. Know that you inspire so many, going from corporate to baseball to the boards to all across the world, and starting STEM schools that are focused on STEM for young girls. You have an incredible heart, and it's just been such an honor to have you here.
Well, it's been an honor to be here. I'm so proud of you and so excited about all of the things that you're introducing women to. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.